So what would I do if anything awful ever happened to my rig? Would I replace her with a brand new RV? Would I buy another used RV? Oh my. Or would I just give up on van life?
Half the battle is just not buying a lemon.
You should not buy a new RV right now.
You don't want to buy an RV.
Today, we're gonna talk about why I would or would not choose one of those options. Hey guys, I'm Ann, single mom and currently a part-time van lifer. Back in 2019, when I bought my first, and so far only, RV, buying a used RV was the best decision I ever made. Now there's four main reasons why this was a great decision. And the first is, of course, that it was infinitely more affordable than a new RV. Even amongst used vehicles, obviously the newer used vehicle will cost a significant amount.
By purchasing used and something that was a little bit older, basically RV life came into reach.
I chose what I would almost call a vintage camper van because she is a 2000 Roadtrek 190 Popular. So in 2019, she was already 19 years old. Today, she's 24. And so you can imagine, because of her age, even amongst used RVs, she was significantly more affordable. But you guys already know, a new rig, the second you drive it off the lot, you've already lost 20% of the value, and within the first year, you lose an additional 10. Buying used, even if it's only a couple years old used, means you get a significant discount. But if you buy a vehicle that's closer to 20 years old, obviously it's even more reduced. The second reason why this particular van was the best decision is because the previous owner really took great care of her. Now, this is not always the case, of course, with used vehicles, but I do feel that if you can find a vehicle today from the early 2000s, maybe even up to 2015, and obviously the fewer previous owners, the better, there's a much higher chance that the previous owner really took great care of her. Mine even came with the previous owner's maintenance records, which was pretty awesome. She was definitely loved by the previous owner, and I think it's a really huge reason why she's still mostly kicking today. But here's the thing, no RV comes off of the lot in perfect condition or sometimes even usable condition. And so it's usually the first owner of the rig that has to work out all the kinks, get all the things fixed, so that by the time you receive her, it should be a pretty smooth rig to instantly start van life. My third reason is the maintenance on her is so much more affordable than some of these newer vans. Oil changes on some of the newer rigs, while they do last longer, is like 3 to 4 times the cost on my van. So minus this month where I have had to do some extensive repairs, maintenance in general on this rig has been super affordable and worked really well with my small budget. And last but not least, the second I walked in her, she felt like a home. And I don't know if it's kind of the old-fashioned design of these RVs, but compared to walking into a new rig, which feels kind of plasticky, my 2000 Roadtrek instantly felt like home, and I instantly knew the few changes I would have to make for her to be perfect for me. So yeah, she was kind of love at first sight. Now, of course, there's absolutely downsides to having a used rig. Number one being that it's had a previous owner, and it can sometimes be very tricky to figure out if the previous owner did in fact take care of her, if you can trust the word of the previous owner, or like myself, I bought my van through a used RV dealership. So it can be very intimidating knowing whether you can trust the dealership to provide accurate information on the vehicle. But also, if I had to buy a used van today, I would be a lot more cynical. Why? Because between 2020 and 2022, the RV industry as a whole, new and used rigs, skyrocketed in sales. There were a lot of people looking to van life specifically to improve their finances. But because times got tight and because travel maybe wasn't as easy to do, a lot of those rigs weren't taken the best care of. So again, if we're talking budget, if we're talking finding a 20-year vehicle today, I feel like in the last few years, we've added some owners who maybe didn't take the greatest care of their rigs. And so, yeah, I would definitely argue that it's a lot more difficult to find a used rig that's affordable and has been taken great care of. And I think you will definitely want to hire somebody who can do a thorough inspection on both the vehicle and the rig to make sure you're getting something that's going to last for several more years. And of course, the second downside to buying an older rig is it's an older rig. It is reported that the average camper van will only last 20 years or 200,000 miles. And my van was already 19 years old when I got her. And while we're not close to hitting 200,000 miles yet, this month has proven that her age absolutely matters when it comes to repairs. The sad fact is that cars, vans, trucks, they just don't last forever. And the older the vehicle you get, the shorter life it has left. So again, the fact that I bought a vehicle that was 19 years old and is now 24 years old, well, I think you can see why I bought her at such a discount. And so especially now that I might be in the repair stage of my van's life, would I ever consider just buying a new rig? No, never.
If you want to buy an RV today, you must be borderline insane if you want to buy a brand new one.
The cost of really everything right now feels through the roof, and RVs are no different. I think the price of even used RVs are well inflated. Like, I hope it's in like an inflation bubble right now and that it'll soon pop, bringing prices much closer to where they should be. But the world we're living in right now seems to be to ignore what the cost of things should be and just keep hiking prices up. So I'm not overly optimistic that the prices of new RVs are going to significantly fall anytime soon. I really feel like people are going to continue to build and continue to push, people paying much more than these rigs are, in my opinion, worth. I mean, it kind of makes sense because the housing industry is also currently in a bubble. So yeah, just everything is costing more right now. So a new camper van, it's just a no. Also, even without inflation, there's a 30% depreciation of a vehicle within the first year. And if you're me, I'm not planning on getting a vehicle and then not personalizing her. Like, the intention is for my camper van to feel like a home. So I'm gonna be doing things like painting it, maybe even removing amenities. So one, I would feel terrible doing that to a new vehicle because I know that when I make those changes, I am depreciating the vehicle even more. Unless you are in the business of flipping houses, essentially, a lot of the personalized touches you're gonna do to your van is gonna have a tendency to bring the value down, vice bringing it up. So for me, not only would I lose that 30%, I would lose, I don't know, 50%, and I would just feel so terrible about intentionally losing that much money. Like, I can't even imagine. But to add insult to injury, not only do you lose the value of the vehicle pretty much immediately, camper vans do not come perfect. So many new van owners spend a significant portion of the first year not even able to take trips with her because they're constantly at the shop waiting to get things repaired. So that's just a huge investment of not only money, but your time just to get a new rig, vice getting a used rig, which will have most, if not all, of those kinks already worked out. So no, I feel very confident that even if I won the lottery, I would never buy a new camper van. Side note, I recently did go to an RV dealership where they had both new and used vehicles. So of course I went in, and let me tell you, at this dealership, the rigs were all less than 5 years old. So even rigs that were created just a few years ago, they don't feel like a home to me. It felt like a new car. It felt kind of plasticky and gadgety, just not like a home. So that's personal taste. New rigs, even newer rigs. A lot of things I like, a lot of things I don't like. Feels plasticky. Because they've got cabinetry on both sides, it feels much more claustrophobic. I do like the double doors. This leather is so soft. I do love the leather seating. Up here it's nice and airy. Back there it feels tight. So it kind of takes up all the space. I don't know why we've got seating for 4. I think 4 people in here would feel so tight. They just don't compare to the hominess of older vehicles. So I'm in a Coachman right now. I'm loving the windows. I don't know why it feels less roomy than my vehicle, and I think maybe because there's so much on both sides. So obviously for myself, I would consider it very risky to buy another 20-year-old camper van, but the ones that are, I would say, at least less than 5 years, just not my style at all. So maybe I would look closer to vehicles that were made from like 2010 to 2020, maybe. But 2 other options have also been really tempting me. And number 1 is a truck camper. So this last month, because my camper van has been in the shop and is scheduled to go back to the shop on Thursday, once my van is actually back to a fully working condition, we'll go over how much this month has cost me. But either way, to get around, I've been using a combination of Uber and my dad's truck. So one, while I've never actually owned a truck in my life, I love driving other people's trucks. And so it's been playing in my mind to get a truck and then a truck camper. So the first benefit that pops in my head is that later this year, my son Alex is going to be turning 15. So he's going to start driving. I think learning how to drive with a camper van is maybe asking a lot of a 15-year-old. Not impossible, but just a lot. The way a van feels is very different from the way a car feels or even a truck. So I do think he would enjoy and maybe even get more out of learning how to drive a truck first, vice a camper van. And so the benefit of a truck camper is you can easily remove the camper from the truck, especially as I'm only a part-time van lifer right now. Maybe it will be fine when I'm not actively living in her to just have the house off of the rig. It would provide less wear and tear on the truck while also giving my son an easier driving experience. Doesn't that sound kind of perfect? Except, okay, here's why it's not perfect. And to be fair, I've never actually gone into a truck camper van, but they definitely look much smaller than my rig. So during the breaks when my son does do van life with me, or in this case, truck life, I don't know how comfortable it'll be for the two of us plus a dog to live. I can obviously handle not having a lot of space, but a truck camper is even smaller than my already small rig. So I don't really think a truck camper is realistic for my son and I to both take trips in her. So it would probably be best for me to wait until I'm actually an empty nester before I get a truck camper. But the fourth and last option I've been considering, it's kind of taken me by surprise, is getting a cargo van and converting her myself. Now, 5 years ago when I bought Marguerite, there was no way that I would have ever thought to get a cargo van and convert her myself, especially because I went from living in an apartment with a 9-year-old straight to full-time van life. There was no learning phase. But now as a part-time van lifer, and because I'm retired from the Navy, I have a lot more time to learn how to convert a rig as well as doing that conversion. And because I've now lived in a camper van, I know what I need and want, vice before when it felt like I had to have kind of everything. Bonus, the cost of buying a used cargo van infinitely more affordable than the cost of buying a used camper van, and I can take my time building out the van the way I want and even spreading out the cost of the renovations over a decent amount of time. And I think finding a used cargo van that's only a few years old for a great price is very realistic, and a newer cargo van would still be easier for Alex to learn to drive with compared to my 24-year-old camper van. Doesn't that sound like the perfect plan? So listen, I do still have this van, thank goodness. And even though this past month has been the most expensive van life repairs I've ever had to deal with, I am still optimistically hopeful that this is not the beginning of the end, but just a natural part of the middle of van life. And so I hope to have many more years in her. But let me know, is it too much to ask for my van to last 30 years? Pray for my van, y'all. She definitely needs it.